As time goes on, we tend to lose more and more knowledge about our own culture and ancestry. And oftentimes we don't think about it until it may be too late. One ethnic group around this area spends much of its time doing research, putting together events, and has formed a club to help preserve their culture, traditions, and way of life. Good evening, I'm Maureen Large. Tonight we'll take a look at the Irish American culture around the area, when and why they came here, and the things that make their culture unique. A good place to start is in the town of Emmett, Michigan. As you drive through the town, you may notice miles of farmland. This is one of the elements that attracted many of the Irish to the area. Head of the Genealogical Research Department of the Irish American Club, David O'Neill, explains.
The Irish began taking positions on issues as early as 1215, and that led to what was the motivation of what we'd call today the Troubles, and the motivation for people leaving Ireland. And this finally reached a peak in the late 1700s, where there actually were formed groups like the White Boys and the Volunteers, and you weren't safe in your home at night out on the farm because these groups would raid. So the Irish started leaving Ireland in the late 1700s, and the big culmination of all of this was the rebellion of 1798, which the British put down the Irish Rebellion. But as a result of that, that was the one led by Wolfe Tone. And then in 1803 was another one led by Robert Emmet. And that was an unsuccessful rebellion. And the migration to America began because people no longer wanted to live in Ireland under the social and economic conditions that were there. And of course, here we are in Emmett, Michigan today, which is obviously named after that hero of the 1803 rebellion. Well, the immigration to the America and also Australia reached a peak in 1840s during the famine. 1847 was the worst year of the famine and the famine ships, and they brought people to America. And at that time, there was land available in America, especially in Michigan, because the peninsula had been bypassed as a migration route. So we'll hear later from Marion the stories of how Emmett was settled and how this land utilization occurred. But this brought many Irish into Michigan, so many that in Michigan we have counties named after counties in Ireland, such as Roscommon and Clare and Antrim, and tremendous settlements. We have Emmet County, which itself is named after Robert Emmet. So all of this brought people to Michigan because Michigan was fertile farmland, and these people basically were farmers who had to leave their farms in Ireland, and they sought a better life.
An important part of the Irish history in the area is the large church in town, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Members of the church include approximately 700 families. It is difficult to miss if you drive by, and although the building itself dates back about 30 years, the history of the church dates back generations.
Well, Mr. O'Neill was speaking about the counties in Ireland. When people came to Michigan, then they named the counties after Ireland. I had some things that happened here with the townships. Patrick Kennedy was a land agent that was from Ireland. I don't know if he was born in Ireland or born here, but he became the land agent, and he was also a correspondent to the New York papers. And they called him Pa Kennedy because he had control over this whole area, or thought he did. He advertised in the Irish papers to come to Emmett for free land. So the Irish came in droves, of course, because they were all farmers, and they got here, and Patrick Kennedy had the idea to put them in different areas according to where they lived in Ireland. There's a thing such as the Kerry settlement, which was from Kerry, County Kerry. When they came over here, Patrick Kennedy put them in a little area called the Kerry settlement. If you were from Cork, you went in a different spot around Emmett. If you were from Tipperary, you were farther north. So that was kind of an interesting little thing that Patrick Kennedy did. About our church in Emmett here, in 1853 there was a church built at the graveyard, which is in Knokke Township. And the church was built in 1853. It burned down, and another one was built in 1895, burned down again. Then they moved to Emmett, and there was some controversy at that time because the people, a lot of the people lived in Emmett, but there were a lot of people around Emmett area in Cahokia, Avoca, Capac, those areas that didn't want the church to move from where it was, but the people in Emmett wanted the church to be in Emmett, of course. So there was a lot of politicking going on and a lot of arguments, but the church did indeed wind up in Emmett. It was dedicated in 1900. That church also burned in 1967. And another church was built across the street now with very little wood in it because the people in Emmett were just sick and tired of churches burning. So it was dedicated in 1970. Father Farrell is another person that I'd like to say something about because Father Farrell was here for 40 years. People thought he was a saint because he was a very good and holy man and had control of the parish, but wasn't a controlling person. We all got our tuition paid free. We all had education free, which is something that's unbelievable now because Catholic education costs so much. But at the time that I was educated, Father Farrell paid our tuition. So I thought that was an interesting thing. The first recorded wedding in the church in Emmett was on January 20th, 1854. It says, I joined in matrimony Thomas Crowley, who was 23 years of age, and Catherine Harrington, who was 18 years of age. And I remember reading someplace that Catherine Harrington was the daughter of the town doctor, and Thomas Crowley was one of the founding fathers.
A local cemetery nearby, the Cahokia Cemetery, holds the grave markers of many Irish people. Names such as Murphy, Kennedy, O'Neill, Brogan, and O'Connor sprawl across the rolling hills of the cemetery. The Celtic cross was recreated for one of these families, and it is proudly displayed by the graves of that family's loved ones. Old names, dates, and towns may be a good place to begin to find traces of our own ancestors. O'Neill explains how to find out about your past through a genealogical research.
Well, when looking into your family history, there's different approaches that people pursue on this. I myself believe that what you do is you get a little help to find out where your people are from, and then you go to the land where they're from. If they're from Emmett, or if they're from Ohio, or if they're from Ireland, you go to the county. And there you begin to poke around and you talk with the oldest residents and you find out things. Now in my own case, I've been able to go back into the 1600s over in County Carlow, Ireland, because I had some professional help in locating a gravestone that was mentioned in a family Bible that came over on the boat in 1806. And from that point, I'm now getting emails from people in Ireland and Scotland and Australia, and we are doing a tremendous amount of research. Word of mouth that you're looking for something alerts people's attention. The other approach is to use today's technology. And because so much information is being digitized, that computer searching now gives access to the Church of the Latter-day Saints records and to records all over the world.
Driving back through town, you may notice a touch of real Irish culture. The local pub caters to many of the locals. According to the owner, it is almost impossible to get in on St. Patrick's Day due to the crowds. Just don't forget your shirt, shoes, and kilt. Learning about the past is an important part of finding out where we came from and how we got to where we are today. What is the Irish-American culture like? And what are some of the customs and traditions that have been passed down and are still carried on today?
Well, I'm here to talk about Irish Beleek. I didn't know anything about Irish Beleek until my Irish uncle came. He's from County Donegal, and he brought me 3 pieces of Irish Beleek. So I wanted to research it when I found out that it was old and each had a different mark on the bottom of it. So we tried to find a book that would describe the different marks of the Beleek. It was out of print, So I found the address and I wrote to the people, and the author's wife wrote me a little card back saying that it was in second print, and if I was interested when it was ready, they would send me a autographed copy. So we didn't hear from him for a long time, so my husband wrote back, and then the author wrote to him and said that the book was ready. So they did send me it, and he did autograph the copy of my Bleak for me, my book. And this is when I got interested in it. Each piece of Bleak is stamped on the bottom. This vase was one of the originals. They went back this year into the archives, and they brought the very first black mark out, only into it they put Bleak in retrospect, and it's from the year 2000.
Hello, I'm Bob Lilly from Port Huron, currently playing with the Sarnia Pipe Band, the Sarnia Legion Pipe Band, that is. And I've been asked to tell you a little bit about the bagpipe. And as you heard before, it's a rather noisy instrument made for outdoor use, preferably than indoor. But on a bagpipe you have, as you can see, 5 openings that go into the bag. This is called the blow stick. You blow in here, the air travels down, and there's a little valve at the bottom, so that when you stop blowing and you squeeze with your arm, the little valve shuts the air off from coming back into you. The air goes into this leather bag, which is underneath this cover, like so. And then the air then from that reservoir services 4 reeds. In the chanter here, there's a reed that looks very much like an oboe. It's a little triangular reed made out of cane, Spanish cane. That goes into what they call a stock. The stock is tied into the bag so that it is airtight. It's a little time to learn how to play them. There are grace notes that you have to learn, and these are all these little chirping sounds because there are no sharps or flats on a bagpipe, and we accomplish the sound by making all these little chirping sounds that embellish a single note. The chanter has 9 openings on it here, and we have 1 octave and 1 note, from a low G to a high A. And it's not much to work with, but they have come up with thousands and thousands of pipe tunes. So I was asked earlier, how long have I been playing? And I wouldn't care to tell you just how long I've been playing, but it's been a mighty long time. We have classes here in Port Huron and over in Sarnia at the Legion. At the Legion on Monday nights, and here I have classes at the house on Thursday nights. We also play many weddings and funerals or wakes and parties of all sorts, in addition to the parades that we attend. So we'll be here in Port Huron for the Blue Water Festival, and undoubtedly the band will wind up in the brass rail and entertaining Helen David, which we have done in the past and have done so for many years. She's been very good to us, and we feel obligated to do the same for her. The Irish Wake is a celebration. It's a celebration of a person who has lived a good life and has now traveled on to a better world. He's gone to the West, and to help get him there, the family gets together, and it's a most entertaining program, because there's some great stories, and there's possibly a little libation involved, but there's singing and dancing, and a joyous time is had by all. So if you've never attended an Irish Wake, don't go there with tears in your eyes. Go there with a smile on your face and a lust for life. That's what it's all about.
Penny Whistle has been a part of Irish music for a long time, and I guess it got its name because of its cost. You know, just a shilling or penny or whatever. And there was a time when in Ireland all the harps were taken out of Ireland, and anyone who had a harp in their possession or were caught playing it were hung. So it didn't take too long to take that music out of Ireland. Well, the penny whistle then helped to bring that back and bring back the harp and you know, other songs. So we have penny whistle that we're trying to play at the club and keep our native influences going. Also, we'll try and do some harp and Bohran drum and other instruments like that as we go along. I've only been playing for about a year and a half now, and got introduced to it just hearing different Irish whistlers play, and got very excited about it. Called Sandy Duffy, the president of the club, said, "Hey, let's get together and do some whistling." So that's what we've been doing now.
Well, one of the cultural things that the Irish have is their music. And I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the music we hear in the background, because it was a project started in 1984 by Mick Maloney in New York. And the requirement was that you had to be a female Irish musician, either born in Ireland or one of your parents had to be born in Ireland. And that formed a group called Cherish the Ladies. And Cherish the Ladies has names like Carol, McGinty, Madden, Cole, Mackenzie, Fitzgerald, O'Neill, Coogan, Ryan, Clancy, and it goes on and on. And these were all young female performers that fit this requirement. Now, they had dancers, and they had the same birth requirement, but to make the dancing nice, they had a dance team of 2 female and 2 male. Now, they went on their first tour in 1989, and they're still together performing today, and they travel the world. And of the original, there are still 3 of the original members. Joni Madden plays the whistle and the flute, and she's the leader of this bunch. And Mary Coogan plays guitar and mandolin, and Mary Rafferty does the keyboards. But probably what's remarkable about this group and how they perpetuate the Irish timeless musical heritage is the alumni. Bridget Fitzgerald was a vocalist, and she is now performing up and down the East Coast and can be seen even in the Midwest in festivals. Liz Carroll became a very accomplished fiddle player, and she's based out of Chicago. Kathy Ryan was a Detroiter, and she does vocals. And when I say vocals, I mean in both Irish and in English. And Kathy is now have her own group. Aoife Clancy, who is the daughter of Bobby Clancy of the Clancy Brothers, was a vocalist, and she now has her own group. Winnie Horan was a fiddler, and Winnie is a remarkable story. She's now the key fiddle for a group called Solus, which is very popular today. And the leader of that group is Seamus Egan. And these people have combined, and Seamus has scored, and Solus plays the music for the new Gene Butler Colum Dunn musical, Dancing on Dangerous Ground. Now, additionally, one of the alumni is Jean Butler, and she was a dancer with the group. And Jean and Colum Dunn we know as the stars of Riverdance. And in following their success there, they are now bringing out their new show, which is Dancing on Dangerous Ground. But probably what I think is the most famous, original, Cherish the Ladies is a gal named Eileen Ivers. And Eileen Ivers went on to fame and became the blue fiddle of Riverdance. And now Eileen has left Riverdance and has her own group. So from this project in 1984 has perpetuated just a tremendous amount of music. And all of these people can be seen both in concert and in the festivals that are held in the various areas of our country every summer.
Now, we all know that in Irish culture, we had our women warriors and goddesses. They were the ones that led us in battle. These women were the ones that gave us the strength to do what we had to do. And we've continued that culture. It's like I'm reminded in modern literature, the Jewish tradition of the strong mother. This is exactly what's gone on with Irish culture for thousands of years. You look back into that ancient history, and we had warrior queens leading massive armies down the slopes. So this is very important to us, our women. Besides, they're the most beautiful on earth.
Learning about the customs and traditions are an interesting and important part of finding out who you are. What's most intriguing, however, are the personal stories of the people who've grown up with this culture and the experiences that they've had.
St. Stephen's Parish began in 1881. It was begun by 12 families that moved up from Marine City. And they moved to this area because of the lumber industry. And lumber was brought down through 7th Street. And that's where the original parish was right where the college is presently and right by where the fire department is. And that original St. Stephen's Parish was called St. Stephen's Academy when a school was built. And the site was moved up to the corner of Erie Street and Broad Street in probably about 1889 or 91, something like that. And those original 12 families that had moved to this area had the Providence nuns come at that time. But the next group of nuns that came and began the academy, in which both boys and girls were admitted to the school, was when they came, were the IHM, the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and those are the ones that we all know and love, that are dear to our hearts.
Some of them.
Some of them. Some of them do have memories, some of them may not. But that was the original history, and that was Currently, where the library of the junior college exists, is where St. Stephen's Parish was for a great number of years. In fact, St. Stephen's has had the 100th anniversary of the parish, and the current St. Stephen's Parish has been moved out to 32nd Street, and many of the same families that went to St. Stephen's when it was downtown also moved out to the 32nd Street Parish and still maintain their sense of belonging to the same parish for years and years. And all of us, the Bennetts and the O'Haras, attended St. Stephen's
And
School.
the Patrick Carries that just happened to walk in the back door, or why come join
Attended
us,
St.
Patrick.
Stephen's School for 12 years. And I guess maybe that's where we need to start now, is just talking a little bit about the Irish families and St. Stephen's and what it all meant to all of us.
Yeah, that's what it was. Irish families. We
I
all grew
remember
up with
one
each other.
family we missed
Didn't
was
we,
the
Patrick?
Crimmonses.
Crimmins.
Oh, Crimmins.
Yeah,
Several Crimmins families.
yeah.
There were on Ontario Street and Erie Street and Rollins Street. There were the Clancys, the Fitzgeralds, the McCarthys,
The Kernans.
the Kernans, the Conlons, the McMonagals. And yes, everybody was just like a little community of Irish people. And my grandfather came from Ireland, and I believe he met my grandmother, Katie Sade, here in Port Huron. She ran a boarding house, and I think a lot of the people that probably were immigrants came and boarded in some of those homes. My grandfather was a carpenter. He died when my mother was 4 years old. So that's a little bit of history about the McMonagle family and the people that we grew up with and grew around. It was a great time.
And that's
Wonderful
what made our
people.
school different, is because it was all family. It wasn't like it wasn't like a school. It was family. Everybody knew everybody. I mean, you knew your mother and dad went there, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, and everybody knew each other. It was wonderful. And that's why the memory is still with us, even though the school is no longer, it doesn't exist anymore, but we do. And so we keep the traditions and the love of St. Stephen's and the nuns and
I think
the likes of Patrick Carey.
everybody's gotten to really appreciate having the joint class reunions instead of having a reunion for one individual class, to make it a reunion for St. Stephen's and have everyone that wants to come from all of the classes, because many of them have married brothers, sisters from other classes, other families, that they just means so much to be able to come home and see your family as well as see everyone they went to school
Right.
with. So.
It's just got a different feeling. Everybody says that. There's something different about our
We're
school.
special. And the reason we're all so special is
Because we're
because
Irish.
we're so many Irishmen among us. Isn't that true, Mr. Carey?
I would say.
We have to put some input here, Patrick.
Patrick, where did you come
Yeah.
from?
My
Golf game.
ancestors came through Canada. I got a wedding thing of my grandfather, who he was baptized in New Brunswick, so he got off the boat. Either he was born on the boat or got off the boat. So my father came to Detroit and got his citizenship through being in World War I. If he was alive today, he'd be 112, my father. So he was 52 when I was born. So some of the Irishmen married late in life.
That's typical.
I did go to St. Stephen's. I was in the grade class of 57. But I lived in Marysville, which is about 6 miles down the road, so I used to hitchhike every morning from Marysville to St. Stephen's, to Port Huron, to go to St. Stephen's. I went to St. Christopher's in Marysville. And, but my uncle, Ed Doherty, Berta Doherty, and Eileen Doherty, they all were from Marysville too, and they graduated from St. Stephen's. So they must have come up by horse and buggy, or they did some room and board at some of the places up in Port Huron.
Well, there are a lot of people that came in from Emmett, too, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you had, in St. Clair,
Marine City.
Marine City, to go to St. Stephen's.
It was the Emmett clan.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Right.
some of the Irish families didn't really write things down in terms of where they're from. A lot of it was passed down by word of mouth. Some families did. Some families who were real poor and came in, like I would say my great-grandfather, they didn't write things down, so you weren't really sure. But passed down, a lot of the stuff is passed down by word of mouth. That my aunt would always say, we're from, the Carries are from Tipperary, Cork area and stuff. And there was a breakup in the family, and so I mean, if you can imagine moving from one side of town to the other, just imagine people who moved across the ocean. I mean, that must have been just a tremendous. They had to have the gumption to get up and move and come from lifestyles in their country that were probably pretty terrible, and that's why they risked coming a month, 2 months on a boat from their individual countries. And so it's great. I'm glad they did, because we're here. I mean, you know, I'm glad, or we'd still be in our individual countries. But that was the Irish are a great family, a great group, as well as all the other nationalities are great that decided to come for a new beginning. We are 2, 3, 4 generations from, say, Ireland. Yeah. And you think, well, you know, I would think sometimes, well, there isn't really anything Irish in me, except that, you know, I'm Irish descent and stuff, but, you know, it really is. Even though there's 3 or 4 generations, you see some other nationalities that may be more reserved, maybe more don't have the humor, but that's one of the nice things about being Irish, is that it's just a friendly, nice, good feeling, and you can laugh, and you know there's humor, and that. So it's not just being Irish, not just being Catholic, not just being from Port Huron, not just being having humor. It's all of that. It's all of that. That's which is nice.
If you're Irish, you'll never know a stranger, now will you?
Probably not.
I'm thinking not.
You might need a handout.
That's right.
My name is Michael McCartan. I live in St. Clair, but I was originally born in Ireland in 1950, and I suppose everybody's immigration story is a little bit different. And so too, in some ways, is mine. My father left Ireland in 1952. His family had been part of the road building in the west of Ireland, and the post-war economy in Ireland was not very good, and so he did what most people in the west of Ireland did, is he immigrated at a fairly young age. In 1955, my mother was scheduled to join him, and she left, and I went to live with an uncle. And I have 2 sisters. One went to live with the maternal grandmother, and one went to live with the other grandmother. And the plan was that within a year or 2 we would all come together, but there was immigration rules that were a problem, and so the next 8 years we all spent in Ireland while my parents lived over here. And in 1963, having grown up in a small village in the west of Ireland called Partry, a village of about 300 people, with literally a one-room schoolhouse with a school teacher who taught class at the front of the classroom while the other grades faced the other walls, and we just rotated around. In 1963, finally, we had the opportunity to come together. And so on August 7th of 1963, my younger sister, who I'd hardly seen in the previous 8 years, and my older sister, whom I had seen a lot, boarded a plane in Dublin with a picture of my mother, whom none of us had seen in that period of time, and flew into New York. I still remember landing there. In those days you would land on the tarmac, and stairs would come down, and you literally walked into the area where you met your company. And I remember sitting in the plane with the stewardess who was assigned to these 3 young kids, looking at this picture and trying to match it up with this apparently excited woman who seemed to be coming across the tarmac. And so that was my mother. And we then flew from there to Detroit, where I joined my father, and this group of strangers became the McCartan family in Dearborn. And you recall in 1963, this was August, and the adjustment of coming from a small village of 300 to the city of Dearborn was pretty remarkable for me. But probably what made it even more remarkable was I was in the 8th grade at the time, and November 23rd of 1963 was the assassination of John Kennedy. And I can remember that I think the second time in my life that I ever saw television, because our village was pretty rural, was John Kennedy's visit to Ireland in 1963, where he spoke in Galway. And he was probably not as high a level as the Pope, but he was pretty darn close. And then to come to this country and, and have him be assassinated had a major impact, I think, on me, and reinforced the stereotypes of how unsafe it was in the United States, and you needed to be worried and afraid and those kinds of things. And so for a little freckle-faced, 14-year-old, 8th grade kid with an accent, it was a very uncomfortable place to be, especially in a city as large as Dearborn. And I can remember, although people were well-intentioned, kind of bristling at the notion of taking me home so that people could hear me talk, because apparently from their perspective I had a fairly silly accent. But that was, as I think about it, not as tough adjustment perhaps as it's been for other immigrants. And I think Irish immigrants are blessed when they come to this country, and at least they know the language. And there is a pretty involved social network, as there was in Detroit at the time that I came. I can recall lots of people from the Irish American Club and the Gaelic League in Detroit being part of meeting us and trying to make us feel comfortable. And the Gaelic League really became a home for me for probably the next 15 years after I got here. Played Gaelic football for a number of years with Detroit, and tended bar at the Gaelic League for a number of years, and participated in the Irish kinds of things. And then, I gradually became acclimated, and I was fortunate in that I was a good athlete, and that allowed me to be a part of a high school scene and a college scene and a post-college scene. But even then, I always felt like I wanted to go back. And when I graduated from college in 1972, which is sort of almost post-Vietnam, but not quite, which was also an interesting time for a little Irish immigrant kid to be here, to be welcomed to go off to a war that he didn't really know too much about. But in any event, I always thought I was going to go back home, and I did. And in January of '72, I went back to Ireland in the wintertime because I didn't want to go as a tourist, and I tried to live there, really. And it was impossible. The adjustment that I had to make as a kid to live here was so enormous that the adjustment I would need to make as a slightly older kid going back was just more than I could really handle. And so I left really for the last time. I mean, not really literally for the last time, but knowing that from that point forward, I was not going to be an Irish kid, growing up in Ireland with all the kinds of aspirations that a kid in Ireland might have, but that I was, going to be an American and be part of this culture. And not long after that, I got married and had kids, and came to St. Clair County actually in 1965, and have found a home here that is not that unlike what people in Ireland are like. And this is now my adopted home. Frankly, I've spent more time in this county than I did in County Mayo, where I grew up. And it still is true, though, that when I talk about Ireland, I talk about it as home. People say, well, when are you going to go home? That usually means, when are you going to go to Ireland? And logically, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense anymore, because my home is probably in 9th Street in St. Clair. But for immigrants, and even my parents, who have now been here for, 50 years almost, they still talk of Ireland as home, and we still regularly communicate and go back on a regular basis. And probably, the biggest joy of my life was taking my kids back when they were 12 and 14. And if there's ever an argument to be made about roots, or if there was ever a doubt in my mind about connectedness and what it means, it was eliminated there, because they became a part of that extended family. And they are very aware of what their roots and their backgrounds are, and you know, I think very proud of it, but also keeping it in, you know, I think good perspective. And one of the things I think we've learned is it's a small world, and Ireland is a small part of that small world, and sometimes I think we get caught up a little bit in the stereotypes and lose the true meaning of it's all about relationships, and their relationship with that extended family has been kind of neat. And most recently, my daughter spent her overseas semester in Ireland studying and got to get reacquainted with the family. That was really marvelous. And you know, again, we're just so blessed that we can go back and forth. When my parents came to the United States, they came by boat, and that was, you know, a 16-day trip or whatever. And now within hours, we can, you know, kind of land in Shannon and be a part of everything. It's really not that expensive. We can call each other on the phone and stay connected. So it's a good time to be living and be part of two cultures and have the ability to do that. And as I said, St. Clair County has now become the new home for me, and I've found that there's a little bit of Ireland here too.
At Christmas time, the day after Christmas is St. Stephen's Day, and we always had a tradition when we were children. And a whole crowd of us would go out from door to door, and we had this poem we used to say, "Duren, Duren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day we hunt the birds, up with the kettle and down with the pan, a penny or tuppence to bury Duren. The road is very goodery, my boots are very thin, I have a little pocket to hold me money in. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, God bless you." And that's what we used to do the day after Christmas.
One of the very special traditions that we have, of course, is that on St. Patrick's Day, everyone brings whatever a special treat might be to Mom's house so that we can share. But Mom has a special recipe for Irish bread that she has passed down to us through the years, and each of us has in our own way developed a special way of making the Irish bread. So believe it or not, when we all get together at Mom's, the bread will be made by the 4 girls, but it tastes a little bit different from everyone, but it's still Mom's recipe. And no one makes it like she does, which makes it even more special. So no matter what kind of Irish bread it is, as long as it's Mom's recipe, it's special.
What would you like to see the family remember the most about being Irish?
Oh, I think the fact that we had a lot of fun when we were together.
I think we all appreciate the closeness of the family.
Yes.
And definitely we identify you as the matriarch.
You do, huh?
Oh yes, you're still in charge.
I wish your dad had lived long enough to see the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren.
Yeah. And they all like coming to your house for St. Patrick's Day.
Uh-huh.
And everybody loves marching in the parade now. Especially liked it when you were the marshal.
That's right.
Yeah.
We had a good time that day.
We sure did. We even won a prize that day. Remember, that was the year that we decorated
the
family tree and put all the names of all the families that were tied to the O'Hara family on the family tree.
You made a float.
Yep.
I don't know if that's going to happen again or not.
We're working on it.
One of the things that I have thought about just in this brief time since I had the conversation with my mom, Judy O'Hara, is the importance of St. Patrick's Day Parade. And one of the things that was really significant for our family was the fact that in 1996 she was the Grand Marshal in the parade. And it was really a great time for all of the family. We were so enthused with the idea that all of her children and her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren were here to celebrate Grandma being the Marshal of the parade. And we had a big party at her house afterwards, and then we all went up to the Fog Cutter in the evening to celebrate too. But it brought the family together, and it gave us an opportunity to celebrate that Mom has been with us for the long length of time that she has, and the importance of having a strong Irish Catholic family.
My name is Terry Nolan. I own the Irish Rose Linen Shop in downtown Port Huron, along with my husband Larry. I'm a 3rd, 4th generation Irish to this country. I've lived in this area all my life. I opened the shop in this town because there is a large Irish interest here, and it's also a destination store where a lot of people travel a good distance from Flint, Detroit area. I get a lot of Canadian. There are a lot of Irish that have settled across the bridge in Sarnia, Ontario, Canada. Many things in my store are very familiar to people who have traveled from Ireland, who are visitors from the country, who are now living here, who are first generation Irish also. They're always surprised when they come in and see the variety of goods that we have in the store. I'm going to show you a few of the things that are most common, most recognizable, most popular, and some of our best sellers in the store. We have an Aran Island sweater, which has all of the different knitting and the different cable styles and stitches on it. This was originated in the Aran Islands off the west coast of Ireland, and if you see some of the different stitching designs on this sweater, it's a very heavy sweater. These were originally made, the women from that west coast area of the Aran Islands would make these, and all of the different families had different stitch patterns. When they went out to fish, if they didn't make it back, the parish priest would identify the bodies by the different family stitches. So that's always interesting to people, and people in the fall time when we first get our shipment of new sweaters in will come to the store to be the first to choose them. We also have Irish linen is very popular in our store, especially for wedding presents. This one happens to have a monogram shamrock on it with some of the famous Irish lace on the sides. It's a heavy flax linen that lasts for long, long time. It becomes a nice family heirloom. We have another thing that the Irish are very, very popular for. This probably really glitters in the light. Galway Irish crystal is got the same lead content as Waterford crystal, and we have everything from vases to smaller objects to baskets, picture frames. These make nice gifts. Some of the littler items that are popular is the harp, which is a national symbol of Ireland, the Celtic cross, which you see in a lot of the cemeteries there, and also out in our Emmet area. You'll see a few of these out in our cemetery. We have Balik, which is an Irish china, a very fine Irish china. This one happens to have the shamrocks on it. It's a basket weave pattern. These also are available in vases, picture frames, small pieces, jewelry. In our store, we also, something that is kind of cute when Irish people come in, they will see all of the different Irish candies that are only manufactured and sold in Ireland and in England. We have some of the different variety here. We have the flakes bars and the crunchies and the maple walnut whips and the mint toffees, quality streets. People are always glad to see them, and they'll buy up a bunch when they're here because you don't see them that often anywheres. They said a lot of the people that come in the store are visiting from Ireland. They have Irish relatives in the area that they come to see. A lot of them, of course, around St. Patrick's Day, which is a big holiday for us. Everybody likes to be Irish at that time of the year, so we do a big business then and at Christmas. And we even sell boating flags for the Irish boat flags for the boaters at during our Mackinac race in the summertime here. We have another little tradition that we've started is a Irish doll club. We now have about 78 people in our Irish doll club. These are made out of dough. They're handmade by a lady in Ireland named Edna Cunningham. She doesn't use a mold. There's no two alike. People buy them, and the people who buy them, they aren't meant to be given as gifts. The person who buys it is the owner. And what we do with this is you always get a discount in the store once you purchase one, and then we have 2 teas in the year, one in the spring and one in the fall. We call our harvest tea. Everybody who has a doll brings the doll to the teas, and we give out prizes, and everybody gets to know each other's dolls, and they're all like the one big related family. Something else that's very common to Ireland is their tweeds. They do a nice job with their tweed scarves, tweed caps, which are very popular also for men. They do a spring scarf, summer scarf. They're different than the Scottish, where the Scottish will have different tartans for their family names. The Irish will have more the coat of arms, which we have up here on the shelf. Glance up here, you'll see a lot of different names. We have everybody from Flynn to Finnegan to Monaghan to Ryan and O'Neill on the wall. And they are ordered, we carry a certain number, and then we order them for people for their own crests. We order scrolls, framed and unframed. We order keychains, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts. And they're all different from one another. Something else that's a big seller in the store is Irish music. We have everything from Paddy Riley, who's a very famous Irish balladeer, and we have the Irish tenors. We have John McDermott, who was one of the Irish tenors, and somebody else that's very popular in the Irish singing these days is Tony Kenny.
The Irish American Club of St. Clair County strongly believes in the importance of preserving their culture. Through meetings, genealogical research, activities, and events, they not only help Irish Americans find their roots, but they also introduce the Irish culture to everyone in the area.
I think we've always been concerned about carrying on tradition, and part of maintaining the links with the past is making sure that tradition carries on. When I ran into you 3 or 4 years ago on the steps of the college, you and I started to talk about the need to carry on the traditions of our fathers and forefathers, and that's how we decided that there was a need to start this club. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Part of understanding about our cultural heritage is the fact that we have a mandate to carry on that legacy in all kinds of different respects, from music to language, the arts, the literature that we have. That's all kinds of cultural heritage of our Irish past that is becoming lost over time. There are quaint traditions that some people still carry on. Lighting the candle during Christmas time, lighting the window during Christmas time, certain traditions during the dinner hour. But I'm 5th generation County Monaghan, and that's 5 generations removed from my great-great-great-grandfather, who of course brought it over from Ireland. I think one of the real issues about starting this club was there was nothing here before us. I did some research and learned that in spite of the rich Irish traditions, not only here but in the county, we didn't have anything going on here. Not one Irish American club or Gaelic League or Hibernian club.
Not that there were no resources and there was no places to go. And the fact that there were organizations throughout the country and throughout the world that were devoted towards Irish ancestry and Irish history and Irish heritage and those kinds of things, such as a Gaelic League, such as Ancient Order of Hibernians and some of those things. And that's how we all came about, was that we just got together and said, hey, you know, there ought to be one here, and we looked at each other and said, well, let's just do it. So that happened in the spring of 1997, and in September we had our first formation of our Irish American Club. We decided to get a board of directors. We had Sandy was able to get some bylaws from another organization, and we looked at those and adopted some rules and regulations to govern our club. And we now have about 135 members. We meet 6 times a year. We have meetings once a month for all the membership if they want to come to the executive board. We have special interest groups that range from poetry and culture, history, genealogy, music, that are very active, geography, etc. All are a part of this that we provide for the memberships, and we're a pretty active club. We're trying to make it I guess the real purpose of this was really education. We wanted to provide people in the community with an opportunity to learn more about their Irish culture, their Irish history, and not only about Ireland, but also in this country, what's going on with the Irish in America. The other thing I'd add to that, before I give it back to Sandy, was that it's open to any member of society. You don't have to be Irish to be a part of it. We don't discriminate against anybody. If you have an interest in learning more about Ireland or Irish in America, you can join up. Our membership is $20 a year, and we start in October 1st and go till September 31st, and it's open to anybody. One of the things as a result of that, what we've done is we've tried to come up with a Celtic Fest, and not just having St. Patrick's Day as one day that everybody gets, thinking of Irish, but we've tried to start a tradition with a week-long celebration.
This year in 2000 was our first year. Next year, 2001, will be the second year. Will be even bigger and better. It will run from March 10th on Saturday night to March 17th, which this year St. Patrick's Day is also a Saturday. And on March 10th, we will have Danny Doyle, that is an Irish singer and historian, and he will be at McMorran Auditorium on Saturday night, March 10th. Then on Sunday, we have our traditional Emmet Irish gathering with a large dinner and a speaker in Emmet. On Monday, we will have our second annual Erin Queen, which this year we had 8 girls compete. And Meredith Whipple was our Erin Queen for this year, and they were in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and they're also going to be in the Rotary Parade in July this year. And their families come and watch. It's a very nice event. On Wednesday night, we're going to have or Tuesday night, we'll have our cultural night. Last year we had some Irish writers that were quoted, and some of their writings were read. We had some Irish dancers, which was very nice. On Wednesday night, we'll have our second annual pub crawl. Last year, we had between 175 and 200 people participate. Our first one on a Wednesday night. This year, it will also be on a Wednesday night. We had 10 pubs that participated here in Port Huron, and we used our vintage trolleys, 3 of the vintage trolleys from town. The cost was $10, and you got a t-shirt, and you got to ride the trolleys all night. We had a schedule, and we had 3 Irish bands in the different bars around town and the different pubs. It was a huge success. Everybody had a good time. Can't wait for next year. Thursday night, we call it movie night. This year will be a movie night, and we'd like to show an old-time movie. Friday night is going to be our first Grand Marshals bash. The night before, we would like to have a small ball or a bash for the Grand Marshal is on schedule. And Saturday will be our St. Patrick's Day Parade, which will kick off at noon.
And hopefully we can get people to come to our community, especially Port Huron, with the idea that they know it's an Irish center and there's a lot of things that they can do here and be a part of.
We have what we call special interest groups, and they range from anywhere from culinary to geography to music to language, literature and poetry. Any facet of Irish culture or heritage that interests to the club members, they can get involved and learn a little bit more about it. Don't just be Irish one day a year. Look into your history, look into your Celtic past, discover who you really are. And to do it for a week, it encourages other people to look into their roots, whether you're Polish or German, Spanish. We want to try to encourage people that the past is something that's very important to them. The fact that they came from generations ago should give them the incentive to look back on their roots to find out who they really were.
Learning about who we are comes from discovering about who we were and teaching the next generation about what we can become. It's the never-ending adventure of our living heritage.